G'day, alright, as promised this video is just about the slabs. All the timber in this slab as well as the bench is reclaimed. The slab is a combination of old decking. I've got some Merbo pallets. I've also got some Merbu pallets and also got stock standard pallets that I find at the back of Bunnings. Do you remember when you first got your training wheels off as a kid? There's nothing like that. You're probably hitting yourself back there. But this thing is the game. So these Merbo pallets, they were wide enough that I could straighten them up, trim them up to be the same profile as that big thick hardwood I've got for the thickness I want for the workbench. So I can basically laminate all these together to make up some more stock. I'm trying to get a little bit of color variation, dark to light, just so when I do cut them up, you actually see that there is a lamination and that it has that pallet look, which they are. These ones are more your traditional pallets, so I haven't been able to have the thickness I need for the bench top that's going to run that way. So what I'm going to do, which I'll show you a bit later, is bulk them out a little bit so they've got the right height. Anyway, heaps of cool colours in there. Don't know what they are, but they're cool. Also, standard pallets, normal size, you don't need to slide. So if you have no idea what I'm talking about, I made some big slabs. So in order to do those, you need to master the slide. So if you really need to go back and check that one, I'll put a link up here. Every time. Okay, beating the snot out of the slab is pretty essential when you're using these type of clamps. Although they are cheap and I use them for everything and they get you in the game of clamping things together, they do lack some of those abilities of a parallel clamp. So just make sure that as you're clamping up, especially the bottom run, that your glue up isn't lifting in the middle. So just a little bit of pressure to start with, tap it down, get the top on, and then even pressure, checking as you go, just to make sure nothing rides up, moves, and then cost you some thickness or more runs through your planer. This is my bench top thickness, or close to it. So I'm just taking my time and just taking off enough until I get these slabs the same as this stuff. So it's all going to glue up nicely for me. Well, shit. It's not quite high enough, so that's a bit of a prick. So I'm just going to chop 2/3 of it and flip them over. I know all this stuff is super square, so I should get a nice clean cut on the old flip side. Okay, again, so I'm going to use my known pieces of timber that I've already prepared for the slab top. So I'll just chuck them in against the fence, lock it down. It might sadden you, but I am going to chop these up into thin strips now, but it's all going to come in, it's all going to make sense. So I've got all the hardwood decking which is going to make up, I don't know, a third of the top. Then I've got these pallets, which same thickness, and then left to go is the rest of all the random pallet stuff, which won't be the same thickness. So we'll have to do something with that to raise it so it glues up nicely. So I just need a couple of pieces for the decorative edge along the front of the workbench. So I've just got the thickness turned on its side. I'll just have a quick look at these slabs and pick out the best selection of pallet wood. I need about 1.8 in length. Then I'll go ahead, turn it back this way, and then I'll rip the rest of it to work in with the rest of the puzzle that is this big slab top. Okay, so you can see the two different heights of these pallet laminations compared to what I want as the thickness of the workbench. So these little thin strips, I'm merely going to just screw those on temporarily to get my level surface for the bench top. So I don't know a heap about wood moving, but I do know that wait for it, I do know that it expands and contracts across the board. So I didn't want all these pieces through the middle of this slab, having this piece on the underside all expanding outwards, putting that bit of pressure on all the laminations where it's all running longitudinal. So so that's what I'm doing it that way for. All right, don't laugh, but if there's a will, there's a way, right? Okay, I've got a step ahead of myself. What I should have done is cut my shoulders first, then set up the blade to cut the bevels or the angles for the dovetail, because I don't want to touch the blade to then go ahead and cut out whatever the opposite part of this is. No big deal. I'll take it over to the miter saw and I'll just set the depth and I'll chop these off there. Or I could use a handsaw, but you know, I'm not going to do that. Alright, so it turns out I am going to use a handsaw. So this cross cut, that is as high as I could get the miter saw to cut with the stopper. And I actually made a meal of it. So I'm going to have to bite the bullet and use a bloody handsaw, aren't I? So I've got this straight edge here, just so I can mark this first one out. And then hopefully I'll just set the blade up, do them all. What could possibly go wrong? All right, let's go with the dumbass pen. Let's cut out that piece. Okay, these last little triangles, been thinking about how to remove those. I was just going to use a chisel for the practice. I'm just going to tilt the blade back over to whatever it was set at, I think about 15 degrees. Doesn't have to be perfect because I'm not going near those outer edges. I'll just lower the blade a little bit and then I can just take out that angle cut as well. So then you can do this whole thing with the table saw and just to clean up with the chisel, which is my favorite, just to clean up. I keep forgetting I've actually got sharp chisels now, so I'm just going to have a go with this because I'm sure it's not that difficult, really. Okay, so sticker sponsor shout out is Dave from Mind Manor Create. Go and check out his YouTube and his Instagram. Does some really cool stuff with resin and he's a pretty unreal wood turner. Cheers, buddy. Alrighty, I've just set myself up for a dummy run with the clamps. Make sure that the clamps are actually pulling on the timber, not the sled. There's a little bit of gap in there, that's what we need. Get my decorative front edge glued up first because it's a little bit fiddly, because I just need to jam it in a little bit to improve the joint. Get rid of a couple of those gaps on the old shonker dovetails I got going on there. Alright, let's do this. It was about 10 minutes to get this size slab glued up. So in that, a lot of repositioning clamps just to get the best pull factor, because you don't want some of these bricks sort of getting cocked off by the pressure from another clamp. So more than enough time to get something this size done. So that's 180, about 100 and, what do you call it? About 1800 mil. Not a dressmaker apparently. So you could use some biscuits here if you really wanted to help you align these slabs, but they're so thick, heavy, I'm more than happy to align it by eye. I'll grab Old Faithful. He's not just good for check and square. See, that is curving up in the middle, which isn't too bad because I have got this big gap here. Now if I can pull the top ones tighter, I can slowly get a nice perfect flat slabberooski. How do you like that word? Slabberooski. I made that up. I've probably lost about 10 kilos in sweat this morning, but I tell you, it's been worth it to end up with these big ass slabs. Yes. All right, one more quick shout out goes to Dirk and Chris, who have a podcast called Measure Twice, Cut Once. The show is on YouTube, but it's also on all your podcast streams. But what I'd just like you to do is go and subscribe to the channel just to help it grow there and reach as many people as possible. A couple of great Aussie dudes, so love it if you got behind their show, help it grow, and definitely go and say g'day. Make sure you drop some comments, let them know who you are, and that'll help that show tick along and hopefully be the go-to for Australia. Alrighty, thanks very much. Just some beauty shots to go. Appreciate you watching. See you round.